A mafia boss pretends to be disabled after an assassination attempt, plotting revenge from his wheelchair. But when the poor black woman arrived as his new nurse, his heart stopped. Something about her quiet dignity made him see beyond his empire of violence. She only took the job to save her siblings from eviction. The pay was too good to question, even if her instincts screamed danger. Then she walks in on him, standing, perfectly able-bodied, while his men torture someone. Now she knows too much. Her family is moved to his compound. She becomes his prisoner, his nurse, and eventually his weakness. But the traitor who tried to kill him isn't finished. When her teenage sister disappears, the mafia boss abandons his wheelchair disguise to hunt down his enemies. The ruthless violence he unleashes to protect what's hers terrifies and fascinates her. As federal agents close in and deadly secrets explode, she must choose between the legitimate world she's always believed in and the dangerous man who would burn everything down to keep her safe. What happens when a woman who saves lives falls for a man who takes them? When the line between captive and partner blurs, will their forbidden connection be their salvation or destroy them both? The crystal chandeliers cast a warm glow across the ballroom of the Fairmont Copley Plaza. Dominic Salvatore adjusted his Italian silk tie, a subtle smirk playing at the corners of his mouth as he watched Boston's elite mingle around him. If they only knew they were sharing champagne with the city's most dangerous crime lord. Mr. Salvatore, your generous donation to the Children's Hospital is remarkable, Mayor Thompson gushed, clapping him on the shoulder. We need more businessmen like you in this city. Please call me Dominic, he replied smoothly, taking a measured sip of scotch. Supporting our community's future is a priority. His eyes scanned the room, noting the positions of his security detail. Something felt off. Tony's shoulders were too rigid, and Marco kept touching his earpiece. Years of survival had honed Dominic's instincts to razor sharpness. A waiter Dominic didn't recognize was walking directly toward him, deviating from the normal serving patterns. The man's jacket sat oddly around his waist. Time slowed. The waiter's hand reached inside his jacket. Dominic caught the metallic glint of a pistol just as screams erupted. Without thinking, Dominic launched himself toward a small girl standing nearby. The first shot cracked through the air as he wrapped his body around her, shielding her completely. White-hot pain exploded across his lower back as the second bullet found its mark. More shots. More screams. The little girl trembled in his arms as chaos erupted around them. You're safe, he whispered, holding her tight until his security team neutralized the threat. The marble floor grew slick with blood. His blood. The world started to fade at the edges as Marco's face appeared above. Him. Boss, stay with me. Medics are coming. Hours later, in the sterile quiet of Massachusetts General Hospital, Dominic lay still while doctors discussed his condition just outside his door. The bullet had grazed his spine, but he could still feel and move his legs. Not that he was letting anyone know that. Clear the room, he ordered once the medical staff left. Only Marco remained, his weathered face grave with concern. Someone close betrayed us, Dominic said quietly, his voice hard. The shooter knew exactly where I'd be standing, knew the security patterns. Marco nodded, moving closer to the bed. The waiter was a hired gun, no connections we can trace yet. Then we'll smoke them out. Dominic's dark eyes glittered with dangerous intent. Let everyone believe the bullet did more damage than it did. Let them think I'm paralyzed, vulnerable. A wounded lion draws out the jackals, Marco agreed, understanding immediately. I'll spread the word that you're partially paralyzed from the waist down. We'll keep the truth between us. Whoever arranged this will get bold, thinking I'm weakened. They'll make mistakes. Dominic's fingers clenched the hospital sheets. We'll need someone to maintain the illusion, a private nurse who can unknowingly verify my condition to others. I'll find someone suitable, Marco promised. Someone smart enough to be useful, but who won't accidentally discover the truth. They spent the next hour planning the details of the deception. Marco would oversee the investigation, while Dominic played the part of an injured crime boss, drawing their enemies into the open. When night fell and Dominic was finally alone, he waited until the hospital grew quiet. Carefully, he swung his legs over the side of the bed, gritting his teeth against the burning pain that shot through his back. Step by step, he forced himself to walk the length of the private room, his movements stiff but controlled. The wound was superficial, painful but not debilitating. He stretched carefully, testing his range of motion while monitoring the security camera's blind spots. Standing at the window, Dominic stared out at the glittering Boston skyline. His city, his empire. Someone had dared to try and take it from him, had been willing to risk innocent lives in the process. The memory of the little girl's frightened face flashed through his mind, stirring something protective he hadn't known he possessed. He'd built his reputation on being ruthless, on never showing mercy to enemies. But protecting that child had been pure instinct, revealing a part of himself he usually kept buried beneath calculated violence. Dominic moved back to the bed, his steps measured and silent. The pain was a reminder, focusing his thoughts as he began mentally cataloging everyone who had known his schedule, who had access to security protocols, who might have motivation to see him dead. The list was shorter than most would expect. He ran his organization like a corporation with strict hierarchies and fierce loyalty inspired by both fear and reward. Betrayal was rare because everyone knew the consequences, which meant whoever had orchestrated this attack was either very desperate or very confident. Either way, they had gravely miscalculated. A nurse's footsteps approached his room. Dominic quickly settled back into bed, arranging his features into a mask of discomfort and resignation. As she checked his vitals, he played the role of a man struggling to accept his new limitations. "Try to rest, Mr. Salvatore," she said kindly. "The road to recovery will take time." He gave her a tired smile, all while calculating how long to maintain this charade. Too quick a recovery would raise suspicions. He needed to be patient to let his enemies grow comfortable with his perceived weakness. The nurse left, and Dominic allowed his expression to harden once more. In the darkness of his hospital room, he began plotting vengeance with the same methodical precision that had built his empire. Whoever had betrayed him would learn that even a wounded lion was still deadly. 1 week after the shooting, silence filled the vast halls of the Salvatore mansion, except for the steady whir of electric wheelchair motors. Dominic navigated the modified pathways with practiced precision, maintaining his facade even when alone. Security cameras tracked his movements, feeding into monitors watched by potential traitors. Marco burst through the study doors, his usually composed demeanor cracked with urgency. "Vincent quit, just now." Dominic's fingers tightened on the wheelchair's armrest. "Explain." "Someone sent photos of his grandchildren at their school in Providence, along with explicit threats." Marco handed over his tablet, showing screenshots of the messages. "He's taking the family to Florida tonight." "Smart move," Dominic admitted. Vincent had been loyal to the Salvatore family for 30 years, starting as his father's nurse. "Make sure he has protection until they're settled." "Already arranged," Marco paced the study. "But we need a replacement immediately. The wrong person could discover." "I know." Dominic wheeled to the window, studying the manicured grounds below. Someone qualified enough to be believable, but naive enough not to question inconsistencies. "I'll contact the nursing agencies again," Marco said. "Screen for someone suitable." Miles away in Roxbury, Imani Jackson hunched over her nursing textbooks at a cramped kitchen table, trying to concentrate despite her siblings' increasing volume. "We're not having ramen again," Zara declared, slamming the cabinet. "It's been 3 days." "Then you cook something else," Jamal shot back, not looking up from his calculus homework. "With what money, genius?" "Both of you, please," Imani sighed, rubbing her temples. "I'm trying to study." The mail slot rattled. Imani's stomach clenched as she recognized the property management company's logo through the envelope's thin paper. She'd been dreading this moment. Opening the letter confirmed her fears. 30 days notice to vacate. The rent increase was beyond what she could manage, even working doubles at the hospital and weekend shifts at the pharmacy. Memories of her parents crashed over her. Mom's warm laugh as she helped with science homework. Dad's proud smile when she got accepted to nursing school. 2 years since the accident, and the grief still felt raw some days. She'd deferred her medical school dreams to keep the family together, refusing to let the foster system separate them. The nursing program was a compromise. Shorter, cheaper, still helping people, but even that felt impossible some days. "What's wrong?" Jamal asked, noticing her expression. "Nothing," Imani forced a smile. "Just tired from studying." Zara wasn't fooled. "Is it another bill? I can pick up more babysitting jobs." "Absolutely not. You focus on school." Imani tucked the eviction notice into her textbook. "I'll figure something out." Her phone buzzed. "Sandra from Clinical Rotations calling." "Imani? Got a weird request that might interest you." Sandra's voice crackled through the speaker. "Private nursing position, live-in option available, triple your current rate." Imani's heart jumped. "Triple? Yeah, but..." Sandra hesitated. "It's for the Salvatore family." The name triggered warning bells. Everyone in Boston knew the Salvatores, even if no one discussed them directly. Old money, people whispered. Connected, dangerous. What's the catch? The patient, Dominic Salvatore himself, was injured in that shooting at the charity gala. Partial paralysis. They need round-the-clock care, but want someone discreet. Imani glanced at the eviction notice peeking from her textbook, at Jamal and Zara bickering over ramen noodles. Triple her salary would solve so many problems. When do they need someone? Tomorrow morning. I know it's fast, but they're desperate after their regular nurse quit suddenly. Imani's instincts screamed caution, but desperation won. Text me the address. The next morning, Imani pulled her ancient Honda to a stop outside imposing iron gates. The Salvatore estate sprawled beyond, all manicured lawns and Gothic architecture. Security cameras swiveled to track her movement. She checked her appearance in the rearview mirror. Professional scrubs, natural hair, neatly braided, minimal makeup. Her nursing credentials hung around her neck, a shield of legitimacy. Remember, she whispered to herself, strictly professional boundaries, no personal involvement. Just do the job. The gates opened silently. As she drove up the winding driveway, she rehearsed proper care protocols for spinal cord injuries, determined to prove herself qualified despite her youth. Inside the mansion's security room, Dominic watched her approach on multiple camera angles. He'd reviewed dozens of potential candidates, rejecting them all for various security risks. But something about this woman made him pause. The way she squared her shoulders before exiting her car, checking her appearance not out of vanity, but professional preparation. The gentle confidence in her movements, suggesting competence beyond her years. For the first time since the shooting, Dominic felt his carefully calculated plans shift slightly off-axis. He hadn't expected someone like her. Through the cameras, he watched her reach the front door, noticed her take one deep breath before pressing the buzzer. Professional mask firmly in place, but he'd caught that moment of steeling herself. Marco's voice crackled through the intercom. Your thoughts? Dominic studied her composed expression on the monitor, sensing layers of complexity beneath the polished surface. Let's see what she's made of. The heavy front door swung open, admitting Imani Jackson into a world she wasn't prepared for, while Dominic Salvatore watched with growing fascination, already recalculating his careful plans around this unexpected variable. The oak door swung open to reveal a dimly lit study where Dominic Salvatore sat in his wheelchair, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows, his dark gaze fixed on Imani with predatory intensity. Mr. Salvatore, she said, keeping her voice steady, I'm Imani Jackson, your new nurse. Another one? He sneered. Let's see how long you last. Imani approached with measured steps, mentally reviewing his chart. I understand you experienced a T12 spinal injury. I'll need to check your vitals and range of motion. Get on with it then. She worked efficiently, checking his blood pressure and pulse while noting his muscular build beneath the expensive shirt. His shoulders tensed when she touched him, but she maintained her professional demeanor. I need to test your reflexes, she explained, reaching for his leg. His hand shot out, gripping her wrist. Careful, nurse. Mr. Salvatore, I can't help you if you won't let me do my job. She met his gaze without flinching. I'm here to assist with your recovery, nothing more. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps, before he released her. She proceeded with the examination, noting how he watched her every move. Throughout the morning, Dominic tested her patience with demanding requests and sharp comments. Imani responded with calm competence, neither cowering nor engaging in his attempts to provoke her. Your previous medication schedule was irregular, she said, organizing his pills. We'll establish proper timing to manage pain and inflammation. You think you know better than Vincent? I think consistency matters in recovery. She handed him the medication, even for patients who don't want to recover. His eyes narrowed at her subtle challenge, but she was already moving on to check his bandages. By afternoon, Imani had memorized the mansion's main layout, though its size was daunting. The twins, Nico and Leo, shadowed her movements with identical stoic expressions. She learned to tell them apart by how Leo's eyes softened slightly when she thanked them, while Nico remained stone-faced. Marco, the consigliere, gave her a thorough orientation. The security codes change weekly. Don't leave the main wings without escort. Mr. Salvatore's schedule is confidential. Of course, Imani nodded, noting how his professional manner carried underlying authority. Anthony, a lieutenant who seemed to materialize in doorways, watched her with calculating eyes. Quite a change from hospital work, he commented silkily. Sure you can handle it? I handle whatever my patients need, she replied neutrally, not missing how the twins tensed at his presence. Throughout the day, Dominic observed Imani's interactions with his household. She treated his intimidating security team with the same respectful professionalism she showed him. When a maid dropped a tray, Imani helped clean up without hesitation, ignoring Anthony's smirk. "Your evening medications, Mr. Salvatore," she said, entering his study as sunset painted the windows orange. "And we should do one more range of motion check." "Trying to torture me before you leave?" But his tone held less bite than that morning. "Physical therapy isn't torture, it's necessary." She supported his leg through the exercises, noting his controlled breathing. "Though some patients certainly act like it is." A ghost of amusement crossed his face. "Calling me dramatic, nurse?" "I would never," she said blandly, making a note in his chart. "Though your range of motion is better than you claim." His expression sharpened, but she was already gathering her supplies. "Same schedule tomorrow, Mr. Salvatore. Try to rest." Nico escorted her to her car in silence. Once inside, Imani allowed herself a shaky exhale. Her hands trembled slightly as she counted the cash advance, enough to cover rent and groceries with some left over. She pulled out her phone. "Jamal? Yeah, I'm done for the day. We can pay the rent, everything's okay." She smiled at his excited response. "I know, just focus on your homework. I'll pick up dinner on the way home." Inside his study, Dominic stood at the window, wheelchair abandoned in the corner. He watched Imani's old Honda pull through the gates, her phone conversation suggesting financial pressures he'd suspected from her eagerness to take this position. "Marco," he called, not turning from the window. "I want everything on Imani Jackson. Family, finances, education, every detail." "Already started," Marco replied. First impression. Dominic recalled her steady hands, unflinching gaze, and the way she'd seen through his act while playing along. She's either exactly what we need or very good at hiding something. Find out which. And if she discovers you're not actually paralyzed, she won't. But Dominic remembered her comment about his range of motion, unless we want her to. He moved away from the window, steps measured and controlled, through lingering pain. The day's performance left his muscles aching, but his mind was sharp with interest. Imani Jackson had handled everything he'd thrown at her with grace and competence. More importantly, she'd treated him like a man rather than a feared boss or broken invalid. "One more thing," he added. "Have the twins keep eyes on Anthony when he's around her. I don't like how he watches her." Marco nodded, understanding the unspoken concern. Anthony had been acting strangely since the shooting, though nothing they could pin down. Dominic settled behind his desk, reviewing security footage of Imani's interactions throughout the day. Her compassion seemed genuine, her professionalism unshakable. But everyone had pressure points, and he suspected he'd found hers in that phone call about rent money. He paused the footage on a frame of her helping the maid, studying her expression. Intelligence shone in her eyes, along with something else. Determination, perhaps, or survival instinct. Either way, Imani Jackson was proving more intriguing than he'd anticipated when reviewing her application. The morning sun cast long shadows across the Salvatore estate as Imani pulled through the gates for her second day. She'd barely slept, worry about Jamal's college applications and Zara's need for new school clothes churning in her mind. The mansion's marble foyer echoed with her footsteps as Leo escorted her to Dominic's suite. She found him already dressed, sitting in his wheelchair by the window with a newspaper. "Good morning, Ms. Jackson," he said, his tone markedly warmer than yesterday. "I trust Jamal's calculus test went well?" Imani froze. She hadn't mentioned her brother's name, let alone his schedule. "Don't look so surprised," Dominic folded the paper precisely. "I make it my business to know who works for me. Your brother's quite gifted in mathematics. Roxbury High's academic team is lucky to have him." "Thank you," she replied carefully, moving to check his vital signs. "Though I prefer to keep my family life private." "Of course," his smile held an edge. "But surely there's no harm in taking pride in siblings who've overcome such tragedy. Losing parents at that age, it shapes people." Imani's hands stilled on his wrist. 2 years hadn't dulled the pain of that phone call, the police officer's grave voice describing the crash. "Would you join me for lunch on the terrace?" Dominic's question interrupted her memories. "The weather's perfect, and I find meals more pleasant with company." It wasn't really a request, as long as it doesn't interfere with your treatment schedule. The terrace overlooked meticulously landscaped gardens. A table had been set with fine china and crystal, making Imani acutely aware of her simple scrubs. Tell me about your nursing studies, Dominic said, as servers brought out elegant plates. Top of your class at Boston City, I understand. You seem very well informed about my background. I'm thorough, he gestured, to her barely touched food. Please, eat. You must be hungry after managing those early hospital shifts before coming here. The meal continued, with Dominic asking pointed questions about her career goals, her parents' influence on her choice of medicine. He sprinkled in carefully chosen details about his own past, mentions of a strict father, a mother's early death, the weight of family expectations. We have that in common, he mused. Both thrust into responsibility young, carrying others' futures on our shoulders. I doubt our situations are quite comparable, Imani said diplomatically. His laugh held genuine amusement. More than you might think, Ms. Jackson. The afternoon brought routine medical checks and physical therapy. Dominic seemed almost pleasant, though something predatory lingered beneath his cooperative demeanor. Around 3, he requested privacy to nap. Imani retreated to the small medical office across the hall, updating his charts. The mansion's thick walls muffled most sounds, which made the sudden crash from Dominic's study particularly startling. Her nursing instincts kicked in immediately. What if he'd fallen trying to transfer to his bed? She hurried across the hall, concern overriding protocol, as she opened the door without knocking. The scene before her stopped her breath. Dominic stood beside his empty wheelchair, perfectly steady on his legs. Blood spattered his crisp white shirt where it had sprayed from the man tied to a chair in the center of the room. The twins held the prisoner's shoulders while Anthony stood nearby, brass knuckles gleaming red. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then Dominic's eyes locked onto hers, and her world shifted sideways. Well, he said softly, a chilling smile spreading across his face. This is unfortunate timing. Imani's back hit the door as she instinctively retreated. Her mind raced through implications. The wheelchair had been an act, which meant everything else might be too. The violence before her confirmed every rumor about the Salvatore family she'd tried to ignore. Close the door, Ms. Jackson. His voice remained conversational as he stepped closer. It appears we need to have a conversation about your employment terms. She did as instructed, pulse pounding. The man in the chair moaned through his gag. You see, your position has become considerably more complex. Dominic moved with fluid grace, no trace of the disability he'd performed so convincingly. Though I'm prepared to be quite generous, given your unique position. I don't want generosity, Imani managed. I want to leave. Ah, but that's no longer an option. He stood close enough now that she could smell his cologne beneath the metallic scent of blood. You've seen things you weren't meant to see that leaves us with limited choices. Her medical training kicked in, providing odd clarity. Check vitals, assess situation, plan treatment. What are those choices? Smart girl, asking the right questions. His smile widened. You can either accept a significant raise and certain additional responsibilities regarding discretion or... He left the alternative unspoken. The bound man whimpered again. Imani forced herself to meet Dominic's gaze. You were never injured? A necessary deception to flush out traitors. He gestured to the bloody man. Like our friend here, who thought I'd be vulnerable in a wheelchair. The original nurse, Vincent. Did he really quit? Very good. Dominic seemed pleased by her deductions. No, he was unfortunately involved in the attempt on my life. His grandchildren are safe, which is more than I can say for him. Imani's stomach lurched at the casual reference to murder. And now I know too much. Indeed. He reached past her to lock the door, arm brushing her shoulder. So, Ms. Jackson, shall we discuss your new salary? I believe tripling your current rate was already motivating. Perhaps we should consider quadrupling it. Her mind raced to her siblings, to rent payments and college funds, to the violence she'd witnessed, and the impossible choice before her, to Dominic's calculated manipulation and the dangerous grace with which he now moved. Take a moment, he murmured. Consider your options carefully, but do remember, time is limited. Our friend here requires attention, and you've interrupted a rather important conversation. Imani's hands trembled as she folded another sweater into her suitcase. The familiar fabric offered no comfort now, just another reminder of how quickly her world had shifted. I don't understand, Jamal said from her doorway. Why can't we stay together? It's complicated. The words tasted bitter. Mr. Salvatore is being very generous. You'll have your own space in the guest house, better than anything we could afford. But why are you staying in the main house? Zara's voice cracked. This doesn't make sense. Imani closed her eyes, remembering the negotiation hours earlier. Blood dripped slowly from the prisoner's split lip as Dominic outlined her options. Imani had maintained her composure, years of emergency room rotations helping her compartmentalize the violence. My siblings stay out of this, she'd stated firmly. Whatever arrangement we make, they remain untouched. Naturally, Dominic's smile hadn't reached his eyes. I'm not a monster, Ms. Jackson. They'll be well cared for, housed comfortably with full scholarships awaiting. Together? Separately. He'd circled her slowly. In the guest house, where they'll be safe and supervised, while you attend to your expanded duties in the main house. You mean remain your hostage? I prefer to think of it as protective custody. His fingers had brushed her shoulder. The wound may not have paralyzed me, but it still requires medical attention. You'll maintain our cover story while providing legitimate care. She'd turned to face him. And if I refuse? And I cannot guarantee anyone's safety. His tone had remained pleasant. Including your siblings. Now, Imani zipped the suitcase with shaking hands. It's a great opportunity. Mr. Salvatore is paying for both your educations. But why do we have to move right now? Jamal demanded. In the middle of the night? Because their lives depended on it. Because she'd seen too much. Because a powerful man had decided their fate over a corpse-to-be. The timing's non-negotiable, she forced a smile. Pack quickly, please. The car will be here soon. Within the hour, black SUVs with tinted windows arrived. Silent men in suits loaded their belongings while Imani hugged her siblings goodbye in the parking lot. She watched their vehicle pull away before being escorted to a separate car. The mansion looked different now, more prison than workplace. A maid led her to new quarters, a luxurious suite connected to Dominic's rooms by a shared sitting area. The decor screamed expensive taste, silk sheets, crystal lamps, artwork that probably cost more than their old apartment. Your siblings are settled in the guest house, Marco informed her. You'll have supervised visits daily, provided you comply with all requirements. Imani nodded numbly as he outlined her duties. Maintain the wheelchair charade in public, tend to Dominic's actual injury in private, and never speak of what she'd witnessed. Dinner that evening was an exercise in controlled terror. They gathered in the formal dining room, Imani, her siblings, and Dominic in his chair, playing the gracious host. I hope you'll be comfortable here, he told Jamal and Zara. The guest house has a game room, study areas, everything you need. It's huge, Zara admitted. But why can't we stay with Imani? Your sister's medical duties require her to be on call. Dominic's smile held warning as he glanced at Imani. We wouldn't want her work interrupted, would we? The meal continued with painful small talk. Dominic asked about their schools, hobbies, dreams, seeming genuinely interested while subtly reminding Imani of her powerlessness with each response. Jamal, I understand you're interested in business programs. A pointed look. Perhaps you could intern at one of my legitimate companies this summer. Later, alone in her gilded cage, Imani tested every potential exit. The windows looked normal, but wouldn't open more than a few inches. The doors had sophisticated electronic locks. Even the air vents were too small for escape. The house phone's sharp ring startled her. She lifted the receiver with dread. Checking that you're settling in. Dominic's voice held amusement. I should mention that attempting escape would be unfortunate for everyone involved. You're watching me. Not a question. Consider it concern for your safety. A pause. Pleasant dreams, Ms. Jackson. The line went dead, leaving Imani clutching the phone in her monitored prison, wondering how she'd protect her family from within these golden walls. She sank onto the silk-covered bed, mind racing through the day's catastrophic turns. Hours ago, she'd been a nurse, caring for a disabled patient. Now she was a prisoner, guarding secrets that could get them all killed. The room's luxury seemed to mock her. Crystal water glasses, designer toiletries, a closet already filled with expensive clothes in her size. Every comfort provided except freedom. Somewhere in this mansion, Dominic was probably watching her through hidden cameras, enjoying her distress. The thought made her skin crawl. She'd have to be careful, strategic, find ways to protect her siblings while searching for escape options that wouldn't get them killed. For now, she could only curl up on the too-soft mattress, fully dressed, listening to the subtle hum of surveillance equipment recording her every move. Sleep would not come easily in this beautiful prison, but she needed rest. Tomorrow would bring new challenges as she navigated her role as both caretaker and captive to one of Boston's most dangerous men. Morning light filtered through the security-reinforced windows as Imani adjusted Dominic's bandages. Her fingers worked with professional efficiency, though she couldn't help noticing the lean muscle beneath her hands. The bullet wound was healing well, a graze that had caused intense pain, but no permanent damage. "You're quite skilled," Dominic observed, watching her work. "It would be a shame to waste your talents on just this deception." "I didn't realize nursing a crime boss was part of the career path." Her tone remained neutral as she applied fresh gauze. His laugh held genuine amusement. "Come, join me for breakfast. We have matters to discuss." The breakfast room overlooked manicured gardens, sunlight glinting off fine china and crystal. Dominic sat in his wheelchair, maintaining the charade even in private. "You'll need to understand certain aspects of my business," he explained, gesturing for her to sit, "especially given your unique position." Servers brought coffee and an elaborate spread. Imani watched Dominic butter his toast with elegant precision, trying to reconcile this civilized moment with yesterday's violence. "Someone in my organization arranged the hit," he continued. "Someone close. I need to appear vulnerable while I identify the traitor. And I'm supposed to help maintain that illusion." "Precisely." He studied her over his coffee cup. "You're observant, educated. Notice anything unusual about my people's reactions?" Before she could answer, Marco arrived with security reports. Dominic shifted seamlessly into his role of frustrated invalid, his movements more restricted, voice tight with manufactured pain. Imani marveled at the transformation. Later, during physical therapy in his private gym, she helped him through exercises to prevent muscle atrophy. Her hand supported his back as he worked through stretches. "Here." His fingers found her wrist, guiding it to a raised scar near his shoulder. "My father's work. I was 12. Spilled wine at a family dinner. Imani's professional detachment wavered at the revelation. "He hurt you often?" "Until I grew strong enough to stop him." Something vulnerable flickered in his eyes before disappearing. The business was everything. Weakness meant death. The moment stretched between them, charged with unexpected intimacy. Then Dominic pulled away, walls slamming back into place. That afternoon, she visited her siblings in the guest house. The space was luxurious, gaming systems, computers, a small pool, but Jamal paced like a caged animal while Zara curled silently on a designer couch. "Are you really okay?" Jamal demanded. "They're not hurting you?" "I'm fine," Imani assured them, hating the lie. "This is temporary. Focus on your studies." She hugged them tightly, breathing in their familiar scents, trying to memorize every detail. Armed guards watched from discreet distances. Back in the mansion, Imani observed Dominic conducting business from his wheelchair. Different captains came to report, some nervous, others calculating. Anthony's visits particularly drew her attention. His concern seemed rehearsed, his body language subtly wrong. "Notice anything?" Dominic asked later when they were alone. "Anthony watches you two carefully," she admitted, "like he's checking his work." Dominic's expression sharpened with interest. "Go on." "He's the only one who never forgets to treat you as disabled. Others slip sometimes, start to stand when you enter. He's too perfect in his performance." "Very good," Dominic murmured. "Perhaps you'll be more valuable than—" Alarms suddenly blared through the compound. Security feeds showed armed men breaching the perimeter. Dominic cursed as guards burst in. "Sir, we need to move you now." Dominic grabbed Imani's arm as his men rushed them through hidden corridors. "Someone talked," he snarled. "Someone told them I was vulnerable." They reached a reinforced door that opened to reveal a high-tech panic room. Gunfire echoed in the distance as they hurried inside. "Stay with him," Marco ordered Imani before sealing them in. Screens showed security footage from around the compound. Imani's heart raced as she spotted the guest house. "My siblings are being moved to a secondary safe location," Dominic assured her, finally abandoning his wheelchair to pace the room. "I have protocols for everything." She watched him move with lethal grace, all pretense gone. In the confined space, his presence felt overwhelming. Dangerous yet oddly reassuring as chaos erupted outside. Multiple angles showed the firefight unfolding across the grounds. Dominic's men moved with military precision, gradually pushing back the attackers. He studied each screen intently, occasionally speaking rapid commands into a secure radio. They knew exactly when to strike, he muttered. Knew my security rotations, weak points in the perimeter. Inside information, Imani concluded. Yes. His expression darkened. And now I know who to watch more closely. They remained locked down for hours as security swept the compound. Imani found herself oddly comfortable in Dominic's presence, their shared confinement creating strange intimacy. He alternated between commanding his forces and asking her observations about various suspects, seeming to value her outsider's perspective. Your siblings are secure, he told her eventually. I keep my promises, Imani. The use of her first name sent an unexpected shiver through her. She watched him direct his empire from this bunker, seeing both the ruthless boss and the wounded man beneath. Her feelings grew more confused with each passing hour, fear mingling with fascination, distrust with understanding. As night fell outside their secured room, the security feeds showed the last intruders being captured or driven off. But even in victory, Dominic's expression remained troubled. Someone had betrayed his weakness, tried to strike while believing him helpless. Someone would pay dearly for that mistake. Imani studied his tense profile, wondering how many more layers of deception and danger she would discover in this strange new world she'd been pulled into. She was both prisoner and confidant, nurse and observer, trapped between fear and growing curiosity about the complex man at the center of it all. The emergency lights cast an eerie red glow across the panic room's steel walls. Dominic leaned forward in his wheelchair, eyes fixed on multiple security feeds, showing armed figures scaling the compound's walls. His jaw clenched as he watched them systematically disable his security measures. They know exactly where to strike, he muttered, hands gripping the wheelchair's arms. Every blind spot, every weakness. Imani stood behind him, her heart pounding as she watched the invasion unfold across the monitors. The attackers moved with military precision, their black tactical gear making them nearly invisible in the darkness. Static suddenly crackled through the radio, followed by silence. Dominic grabbed a secure phone, but no signal connected. They're jamming communications! A loud metallic screech echoed through the room. Someone was trying to breach the reinforced door. Dominic wheeled to a wood-paneled wall, pressing a hidden mechanism that revealed a narrow passage. Move, he ordered. But before Imani could reach the opening, the main door burst inward with an explosion that filled the room with smoke. A masked figure appeared through the haze, weapon raised. What happened next seemed impossible. Dominic launched himself from the wheelchair with lethal grace, crossing the space in 2 powerful strides. He caught the gunman's wrist, twisting until bones cracked. The weapon clattered to the floor. The attacker was skilled, recovering quickly to throw a punch that Dominic blocked. They moved in a brutal dance, trading devastating blows. Dominic fought with cold efficiency, each strike calculated to disable. When the attacker pulled a knife, Dominic caught the blade between his palms, twisting it free and driving it into his opponent's throat in one fluid motion. The body crumpled. Dominic turned, blood splattered across his expensive shirt to find Imani staring at him. Her world tilted on its axis as pieces clicked into place. Every careful observation, every inconsistency in his behavior suddenly made terrible sense. You never needed me at all, she whispered, backing away as he approached. Not as a nurse, he agreed, reaching for her with red-stained hands. But I find I need you all the same. More footsteps echoed in the corridor. Dominic grabbed her arm, pulling her into the hidden passage and sealing it behind them. Emergency lights illuminated a concrete tunnel stretching into darkness. The Rossi family, he explained as they moved swiftly through the underground network. They've wanted my territory for years. Someone convinced them I was vulnerable, gave them detailed intel about my security. How long have you been planning this? Imani demanded. The wheelchair, the nurse, all of it? Since the assassination attempt. I needed everyone to believe I was weakened while I identified the traitor. He guided her around a corner. But keeping you close became about more than maintaining cover. They emerged in a garage several blocks away, where Marco waited with a bulletproof SUV. Imani's phone immediately lit up with confirmation that her siblings were safe at a separate location. Only then did she turn on Dominic, anger overtaking fear. I deserve the truth, she said. All of it. Why am I really here? Dominic dismissed Marco, leaving them alone in the concrete space. For the first time, she saw him drop the calculated mask he always wore. You were supposed to be simple, he said. A convenient prop for my deception. But you saw through every layer, challenged every assumption. You treated me like a man, not a monster or an invalid. He stepped closer. You made me want things I'd forgotten were possible. What things? She whispered. Connection, trust, the chance to be seen as something more than what my father made me. His hand rose to her face but stopped short of touching. I haven't been honest about many things, but my growing need for you is absolute truth. A phone rang, shattering the moment. Dominic answered, his expression hardening as he received reports about the attack. Security had repelled the invasion, but the breach proved his organization was compromised at high levels. You know too much now, he told her after hanging up. There are people who would torture you for information about my operation, my defenses. He signaled, and the twins materialized from the shadows. Nico and Leo will guard you at all times. You mean they'll keep me prisoner, she translated. They'll keep you alive, he corrected. I won't risk losing you, Imani. Not to my enemies, not to your conscience, not to anything. She watched Nico and Leo take up positions on either side of her. Identical faces, matching weapons, the physical manifestation of her gilded cage. They would shadow her every move, reporting directly to Dominic. Any illusion of freedom had vanished. What happens now? She asked. Now I find who betrayed me, starting with those who knew about my supposed injury. His eyes held hers. And you accept that your place is by my side, where I can protect you. And if I don't accept it, you will. He spoke with absolute certainty, because deep down, you feel this connection too. You want answers, understanding. You want to know if the man you glimpsed beneath the lies is real. He moved closer until she had to tilt her head back to hold his gaze. Stay, and I'll show you every truth you want to see. The twins remained expressionless as they watched this exchange, but their hands never left their weapons. They were her guards now, making escape impossible. Yet as Imani looked at Dominic, this dangerous, complicated man who had drawn her so deep into his web, she wasn't sure she wanted to escape anymore. The morning sun cast long shadows across the bullet-scarred walls of the Salvatore compound. Workers repaired broken windows and patched bullet holes while security teams reinforced the perimeter. Inside Dominic's office, Imani poured coffee with practiced grace, her hands steady despite the weight of her new reality. Dominic sat in his wheelchair, playing the role of invalid boss perfectly as his captains delivered their security assessments. She watched him from the corner of her eye, still adjusting to this double life they now shared. When their gazes met briefly, she saw a flicker of something unreadable in his expression. The breach came from the southeast corner, Marco explained, pointing to blueprints spread across the mahogany desk. They had detailed knowledge of our blind spots. Imani moved around the room, filling cups and observing. Anthony stood slightly apart from the others, his posture too rigid, his attention too fixed on Dominic. When Marco mentioned internal security protocols being compromised, Anthony's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Review all staff communications from the past month, Dominic ordered, his voice carrying authority even from the wheelchair. I want to know every person who had access to those security details. The meeting continued with discussions of increased patrols and enhanced surveillance. Imani maintained her professional mask, but her mind cataloged every reaction, every subtle tell. She'd learned to read people during her nursing rotations. It was crucial to spot when patients were hiding pain or lying about symptoms. Those same skills now revealed the undercurrents of tension in this room. When Dominic wheeled into his private office with Marco, leaving her to clean up, she noticed the stack of security reports on his desk. Something about Anthony's documentation caught her eye. Dates that didn't align, patrol schedules with suspicious gaps. As she leaned closer to examine them, her elbow knocked the papers to the floor. Dropping to her knees, she hurriedly gathered the scattered documents. Between routine reports and financial records, a crumpled receipt fluttered out. Her heart stopped as she read it. A burner phone purchased the same day Vincent, the previous nurse, received threats about his grandchildren. Allow me to help, Ms. Jackson. Anthony's voice made her jump. He stood in the doorway, his smile not reaching his cold eyes. He knelt beside her, helping collect papers, while maintaining uncomfortably close proximity. Curious nurses don't tend to last long in this business, he said softly, plucking the receipt from her trembling fingers. They have unfortunate accidents, or their families do. The threat hung heavy in the air as he meticulously straightened the papers, taking his time while Imani remained frozen beside him. Every instinct screamed danger, but she forced herself to stay calm, to keep her expression neutral. Throughout the day, she felt Anthony's gaze following her. When she helped Dominic with physical therapy in his private gym, Anthony lingered outside the door. During meals, he positioned himself where he could watch her. Even while checking inventory in the medical supply room, she glimpsed his reflection in the window, observing from the garden. That evening, Dominic hosted associates from another family, maintaining his wheelchair facade while discussing territory agreements. Imani used this opportunity to visit her siblings in the guest house, treasuring these precious moments of normalcy as Jamal complained about his homework and Zara showed off her art projects. Walking back through the mansion's dim corridors, her footsteps echoing on marble floors, she heard movement behind her. Before she could turn, Anthony grabbed her arm, pulling her into an alcove. "You found something interesting in those papers," he said, his grip painfully tight. "Now you have a choice to make." Imani tried to pull away, but he held firm. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't play stupid," he hissed. "Dominic trusts you with his medications. You have perfect access. You're going to start adding something special to his doses, just enough to make him appear to deteriorate naturally." "I won't," she whispered, but Anthony's smile widened. "You will," he countered. "Because if you don't, your precious siblings will vanish. First Zara, then Jamal. You'll never know if they're dead or suffering something worse. But if you cooperate, they'll remain safe and comfortable." Tears slid down Imani's cheeks as she nodded, already planning how to warn Dominic. Anthony released her arm, straightening his suit with satisfaction. "Good girl. We'll discuss details tomorrow. Don't try telling Dominic. You'll be dead before you finish the sentence, and then who will protect your family?" He walked away, leaving Imani shaking in the shadows. She composed herself, knowing she needed to reach Dominic immediately. But when she arrived at her room, the door wouldn't yield to her keycard. She pressed the intercom to call security, finding it dead. Through the heavy wood, she heard the distinct click of the external locks engaging. She was trapped, cut off from communication, while somewhere in the mansion, Anthony plotted Dominic's death. Her fingers traced the bruises forming on her arm as she searched frantically for another way out, finding every possible exit secured. The elegant room had become a prison, and time was running out. Imani stared at the locked door of her luxurious prison, heart pounding as she assessed her options. The elegant hairpins Dominic had gifted her last week might work on the traditional lock, but the electronic keypad posed a bigger challenge. After an hour of careful manipulation, she managed to pry off the keypad's cover, studying the wire configuration in the dim light. Her hands trembled as she carefully crossed specific wires, thanking God for Jamal's obsession with engineering videos that she'd watched with him. After 3 attempts, the lock clicked open. She held her breath, easing the heavy door open just enough to slip through. The mansion's corridors stretched dark and silent. Security cameras tracked her movement, their red lights blinking steadily. She kept her pace natural, knowing running would draw immediate attention. If Anthony was monitoring the feeds, she needed to appear like she was simply making a late-night check on her patient. Moonlight filtered through towering windows, casting elongated shadows across marble floors. Every creak and settling sound made her jump, but she forced herself forward. The weight of what she knew pressed against her chest. Evidence of Anthony's betrayal, his threat against her siblings, the poison he expected her to administer. She found Dominic's study door slightly ajar, warm lamplight spilling into the hallway. He sat behind his massive desk, wheelchair nowhere in sight, reviewing security footage on multiple monitors. His shoulders tensed at her entrance, but he didn't seem surprised. "I wondered how long it would take you to escape," he said without looking up. "You knew my room was locked. I know everything that happens in my house." Now he met her eyes, except, apparently, what my most trusted lieutenant is plotting. Imani approached cautiously, hyper-aware of the cameras. "The receipt I found today, it matches when Vincent received threats about his grandchildren. Anthony caught me finding it." Dominic's expression remained carefully neutral. "And? He wants me to poison you, make it look like complications from your injury." Her voice cracked. "He threatened my siblings if I don't comply." She expected explosion, violence, immediate action. Instead, Dominic's response was terrifyingly controlled. He gestured for her to sit, studying her with calculating intensity. "If we move against Anthony now, we'll never know who else is involved," he said quietly. "He's too careful to leave obvious evidence. We need him to reveal his entire network." "What are you suggesting?" "You'll agree to his plan, appear to comply while we gather proof." His eyes hardened. "Unless you're not capable of maintaining that deception." "I can do whatever it takes to protect my family." Something flickered in his expression. "I believe you can." They spent hours developing their strategy, Dominic revealing layers of paranoid security measures she'd never imagined. He explained how he'd risen to power, The betrayals that taught him to trust no one, the constant awareness that loyalty lasted only until a better offer came along. My father's closest friend ordered his assassination, Dominic said, pouring them both drinks as dawn approached. I learned then that family means nothing in this business. Only power and fear maintain control. Is that why you never married? Never trusted anyone close enough? He went still, studying her over his glass. Would you trust in my position? Exhaustion made her brave. I think you trust me now, or we wouldn't be having this conversation. Perhaps I'm making another mistake. Or perhaps some people can be trusted if you give them reason to be loyal beyond fear. Their eyes held across the desk. Hours of planning had broken down formal barriers between captor and captive, replacing them with something more complicated. When Dominic reached to brush a strand of hair from her face, the gesture seemed unconscious. His fingers froze before making contact, the moment stretching taut between them. Dawn's coming, he said roughly, standing. I'll escort you back before the house wakes. They walked in silence through the quiet mansion, their steps synchronized. At her door, Dominic's hand brushed hers as he reached past to enter the security code. Remember, he murmured, nothing can change in how others see us. You are still my captive nurse, and I am still the vulnerable boss who trusts his lieutenant. Everything depends on maintaining that illusion. Imani nodded, acutely aware of his proximity, of the warmth radiating from his body. Their fingers touched again as she moved past him into her room, the contact sending electricity through her tired body. They both hesitated, caught in another suspended moment before Dominic stepped back, letting the door close between them. She stood in darkness, listening to his retreating footsteps, knowing that tomorrow would begin their dangerous game of deception. Her life, her siblings' lives, and perhaps even her heart now balanced on their ability to fool a man who had orchestrated the perfect betrayal. The morning sun filtered through rain clouds as Imani entered Dominic's study for his scheduled medication. Anthony watched from the doorway, his presence a constant shadow. She kept her hand steady while measuring the fake dosage, letting genuine anxiety about her siblings color her movements. How are you feeling today, Mr. Salvatore? Her voice carried the proper professional distance. The pain is significant. Dominic grimaced convincingly as he swallowed the harmless substitute. Through careful sleight of hand, she slipped a folded note into his shirt pocket while adjusting his collar. Anthony's satisfied smirk made her skin crawl. Perhaps we should increase the dosage if you're suffering so much, boss. Ms. Jackson knows best, Dominic replied, his tone dismissive, but his eyes conveying hidden meaning to Imani. Throughout the morning, they maintained their elaborate performance. During physical therapy, Imani discovered Dominic's note hidden in medical supplies. Marco had traced the burner phone to a warehouse connected to the Rossi family. She destroyed the paper, her medical duties providing cover for their secret communication. Thunder rolled in the distance as dark clouds gathered. Weather alerts warned of a severe storm approaching Boston. The mansion's atmosphere grew heavy, with more than just approaching rain. During his afternoon examination, with the door safely closed and water running to mask their voices, Dominic shared pieces of his past. My father broke 3 of my ribs on my 10th birthday, he said quietly, showing her old scars. Said it was to teach me that pain is power. The power to inflict it, to endure it. Imani's fingers traced the marks gently. Is that why you became like him? I became what I had to become. His voice held unexpected vulnerability. But I swore I'd never enjoy causing pain the way he did. The intimacy of the moment stretched between them, interrupted by another crack of thunder. Rain began lashing against windows as Imani headed to the guest house to check on her siblings. They're not here, miss, the housekeeper informed her. Mr. Anthony took them shopping about an hour ago. Said it was a treat from the boss. Ice filled Imani's veins. She ran through the strengthening storm back to the mansion, bursting into Dominic's study without ceremony. He has them, she gasped. Anthony took Jamal and Zara. Dominic's face transformed from calculated mob boss to lethal predator. He's moving faster than we anticipated. He must have realized we're... A blinding flash of lightning cut him off, followed immediately by explosive thunder. The mansion plunged into darkness. Backup generators should... Dominic began, but the emergency lights remained dead. Fuck. He's been planning this. Security systems powered down with audible clicks. In the distance, they heard confused shouting as the compound's personnel dealt with the blackout. Dominic moved swiftly to his desk, retrieving a handgun and flashlight. Stay close, he ordered, leading them to his private quarters where emergency supplies were stored. The storm's violence matched the tension coursing through the darkened halls. In Dominic's rooms, they found candles and battery-powered lanterns. The flickering light created intimate shadows as they tried raising Marco on a satellite phone, only to find communications jammed. Thunder shook the windows while rain drummed against glass like bullets. He's using the storm for cover, Dominic said, pacing. The shopping trip is misdirection. He's probably moving them to the Rossi's right now, thinking the blackout will keep us contained. Imani hugged herself, fighting panic. What do we do? Marco knows to implement contingency plans if systems fail. We need to wait until... Another lightning strike illuminated the room, throwing their shadows against walls. In that flash, their eyes met with crackling intensity that matched the storm's energy. Dominic moved toward her, purpose in every step. I should have killed him the moment you showed me that receipt. You needed proof. Her breath caught as he stopped inches away. I needed to protect you? His voice dropped lower. I tell myself it's because you're useful, because you're my cover, but we both know that's not true anymore. The candles cast golden light across his features, softening the hardness she'd first known. Her hand rose to touch his face, tracing the scar at his temple. When did I stop being your prisoner? When did I start being more than your captor? The questions hung between them for a heartbeat before Dominic closed the distance. His kiss was surprisingly gentle at first, a contrast to the storm's fury. Imani responded with the passion she'd been denying, weeks of tension finally breaking, his hands tangled in her hair as the kiss deepened. She pressed closer, feeling the strength in his body, no longer the invalid he pretended to be. The power dynamic that had defined their relationship dissolved in the darkness, replaced by raw need. Dominic backed her against the wall, his touch both demanding and questioning. She answered by pulling him closer, letting actions speak what words couldn't. Lightning flashed again, illuminating them pressed together, no longer boss and nurse, captive and captor, but equals in this moment of shared desire. Their kisses grew more urgent as thunder crashed overhead. Imani's hands slipped under his shirt, feeling the scars and muscles that told his story. Dominic's lips traced her neck, drawing a soft gasp that was lost in the storm's noise. The candlelight painted their shadows on the wall, two figures becoming one, professional boundaries and criminal hierarchies, forgotten in the primal darkness of the blackout. Every touch, every kiss, every shared breath marked a point of no return, a transformation as powerful as the storm reshaping the night sky outside. Sunlight filtered through unfamiliar curtains as Imani stirred, her mind fuzzy with sleep. The silk sheets felt foreign against her skin, and for a moment panic seized her, until memories of the previous night cascaded back. The storm, the darkness, Dominic. She turned to find him already awake, watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Before either could speak, the bedroom door burst open. Boss, we have... Leo froze, his professional demeanor cracking slightly at the scene before him. To his credit, he recovered quickly. Jamal's back, he's in the kitchen. Imani bolted upright, clutching sheets to her chest. What about Zara? Anthony called, claims they're stuck by downed trees on River Road, says they'll be back by afternoon. Leo's face remained carefully neutral. Marco's already checking the story. Dominic was already moving, his nude form a map of scars and muscle as he efficiently dressed. He's playing for time. Get Nico to coordinate with traffic cameras. I want every possible route mapped. Already done. But boss... Leo hesitated. Some of the men are asking questions about the power failure. Anthony's allies will be watching. Then we maintain appearances. Dominic turned to Imani, his expression softening fractionally. Get dressed, check on your brother, then handle the medical station normally. We have injured staff from storm cleanup that need attention. Imani wanted to argue, but understood the strategy. What about Zara? Trust me. His voice carried layers of meaning after their shared night. Leo, escort Ms. Jackson to her quarters to change. We can't have rumors starting now. The next hours were excruciating. Imani cleaned storm injuries, bandaged cuts, and prescribed pain medication, while her mind raced with possibilities of where Anthony might have taken her sister. Between patients, she slipped notes to Dominic through the twins, possible locations Zara had mentioned, friends' houses where they might hide. By midday, the compound hummed with tension. No word from Anthony. No sign of Zara. Imani finished stitching a security guard's forehead when Marco appeared at the medical station door. The boss requests your presence. His tone gave nothing away, but his eyes held warning. In Dominic's study, she found him standing, actually standing, while Nico spread maps across his desk. Her heart stuttered at seeing him fully upright in daylight, power radiating from his posture. "We've confirmed Anthony's been planning this for months," he said, without preamble. "The Rossis offered him territory in exchange for weakening our organization. Zara's kidnapping is his insurance policy. But why now? Why not wait until—" "Because of you?" Dominic's jaw clenched. He saw what was developing between us. Knew you'd eventually discover his connection to Vincent's threats. He's accelerating his timeline. "So what's our move?" "I'm done playing injured." Dominic straightened to his full height. "We're calling a family meeting. Everyone. It's time they knew who really tried to kill me. But your advantage means nothing compared to finding Zara." The intensity of his gaze stole her breath. "I won't let him hurt your family to get to me." Within an hour, the mansion's great hall filled with Salvatore captains and soldiers. Whispers died as Dominic entered, walking strong and lethal, with Imani beside him. Gasps and mutters rippled through the crowd. "Some of you already guessed," his voice carried effortlessly. "The assassination attempt failed. I maintain the deception to smoke out the traitor." His eyes swept the gathered men. "Anthony Conti has betrayed this family to the Rossis. He's taken an innocent girl hostage. This ends tonight." The next hours passed in controlled chaos as search teams mobilized. Imani helped identify likely locations, while Dominic's men gathered weapons and tactical gear. As darkness approached, she found him in the armory, checking a matte black handgun. "I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not." He didn't look up. "She's my sister." "Which is exactly why you'll stay here where it's safe." Now he met her eyes. "Anthony will use you against me if he gets the chance." "I can help. I know Zara better than anyone. I'll recognize signs you might miss." "Imani." He set down the gun, moving to grasp her shoulders. "I need to focus on destroying him. I can't do that if I'm terrified of losing you too." The admission hung between them, heavy with implications. Last night had changed everything, crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed. His hands tightened on her shoulders. "Please," she whispered. "I can't just wait here wondering if my sister's alive." Conflict warred across his features. Finally, he exhaled sharply. "You stay with Nico at all times. If he says move, you move. If he says hide, you hide. No arguments." "Agreed." "And Imani," his voice roughened, "when this is over, we need to talk about what happened last night. What's happening between us?" She nodded, heart pounding as he pulled her closer, pressing a fierce kiss to her forehead. Outside, engines rumbled as vehicles assembled in the courtyard. The rescue team was ready. Dominic stepped back, the tender lover disappearing behind the mask of a Mafia boss preparing for war. "Let's go get your sister." The abandoned warehouse loomed against the midnight sky, its broken windows like dark eyes watching Dominic's teams take position. Imani crouched behind an armored vehicle with Nico, her heart thundering as she watched Dominic issue silent hand signals to his men. Through her earpiece, she heard the team confirmations. "East side secured. Roof team in position. West entrance covered." Dominic's voice came low and deadly. "Remember, Zara Jackson is priority. Any shot that risks her safety will be answered for personally." The first explosion rocked the building's south entrance. Smoke billowed as Dominic's men breached through multiple points. Gunfire erupted immediately. Anthony's guards had been waiting. From her position, Imani watched Dominic move with lethal grace. Gone was any trace of his feigned disability. He flowed through combat like a predator, each shot and strike precisely calculated. When a guard burst from hiding, Dominic's response was instantaneous, a brutal sequence that left the man crumpled without ever threatening the rescue team's advance. "Movement third floor, east corner," crackled through the comms. Visual confirmation on the girl, multiple armed hostiles. Dominic's voice remained controlled. "Converge on my mark, 3, 2... An explosion larger than the first rocked the building's foundation. Nico cursed, pulling Imani lower as debris rained down. "It's rigged! They knew we were coming." "Zara!" Imani tried to move forward, but Nico's grip was iron. "Boss has it handled. Watch!" Through the smoke, she saw Dominic directing teams with ruthless efficiency, adapting strategy instantly. He coordinated the assault like a deadly chess match, herding Anthony's men into kill zones while steadily advancing toward Zara's position. When they reached the third floor, Imani heard her sisters scream through the comms. Her blood turned to ice. "Let me through!" She broke from Nico's grip, running toward the building. He caught her again as Dominic's voice cut through the chaos. Target secured. Medical team, advance. Nico, bring her up. They found Zara huddled in a corner, shaking but physically unharmed. The room showed signs of explosive preparation. Anthony's men had rigged it to collapse, but hadn't gotten the chance. Bodies sprawled where Dominic's team had taken them down. Imani rushed to her sister, while Dominic directed the securing of a struggling man she recognized as Anthony's Lieutenant James. The contrast was stark. Dominic gentle as he helped clear space for the sisters' reunion, then turning to James with cold fury. "Where is he?" The question carried death in it. James spat blood. "Go to hell!" What followed made Imani glad she told Zara to keep her eyes closed against her shoulder. Dominic's interrogation methods were efficient and brutal. Within minutes, James broke. The Rossis meeting at dawn, their compound in Revere. Each word came between pained gasps. Trading everything he knows about your operation. For protection. Dominic's expression promised violence. Thank you for your cooperation. The gunshot that followed was almost merciful. Back at the compound, medical staff swarmed Zara while Jamal held her hand, tears streaming down his face. The siblings clung to each other whole again. Imani watched from the doorway, emotions warring inside her. She found Dominic in his study, cleaning blood from his hands with mechanical precision. He stiffened when she entered, but didn't turn. "She's resting. No serious injuries." Imani's voice was steady. The doctor gave her something to help her sleep. "Good." He kept scrubbing. "I saw you tonight. The real you." Now he turned, eyes haunted. "Yes." The monster beneath the man. "No." She stepped closer. "I saw both. The violence you're capable of, and how precisely you wielded it to protect what matters." "I tortured a man in front of you, killed him without." Hesitation. "To save my sister, to keep your people safe." Another step. "I'm not running from what you are, Dominic." His laugh held no humor. "You should. The things I've done will do tomorrow when I find Anthony." "I know." She reached for his hands, stilling their restless movement. "I've seen the worst now. Let me see it through to the end." He studied her face. "You understand what you're asking. Tomorrow won't be a rescue mission. It will be war." "I understand exactly what I'm asking." She held his gaze. "You protected my family. Now let me help you protect yours." A long moment passed before he spoke. "Dawn deployment. Nico and Leo will keep you back from direct combat, but I want you coordinating with our medical team. We'll likely need it." She nodded, then surprised him by reaching up to trace the tense line of his jaw. His eyes darkened at her touch. "What I saw tonight," she said softly. "The violence, yes, but also loyalty, protection, purpose. I'm not running from any of it." His hand caught hers, pressing it more firmly to his face. For a moment, the killer receded, leaving just the man, one carrying impossible burdens and finding unexpected support. The moment broke as Marco knocked, entering with satellite images of the Rossi compound. Dominic straightened, battle focus returning as he absorbed tactical details, but his hand found Imani's under the desk, a brief squeeze conveying volumes. Outside, the sky began lightening toward dawn. Soon they would move against Anthony and his new allies. But for now, in this quiet moment, they acknowledged the night's revelations and what they meant for their future. Imani had seen Dominic's darkest capabilities. Instead of running, she chose to stand beside him, understanding that the same hands that dealt death had also fought to protect her family. Tomorrow would bring war, but they would face it together. Dawn painted Boston's skyline in shades of gold as Dominic Salvatore walked into his first public meeting in months. The gasps from assembled captains echoed through the restaurant's private room. He moved with deliberate grace, power radiating from every step. "Gentlemen." His voice carried quiet authority. "I believe some explanations are in order." Imani watched from a carefully positioned corner as he detailed a masterful narrative. His temporary deception spun as tactical genius that smoked out traitors and preserved the family's strength. The men's shock transformed to reverent awe as they realized their boss had orchestrated everything. But it was the next part of his speech that caught her attention. "We've relied too heavily on traditional revenue streams," Dominic announced. "It's time we expanded our legitimate holdings." His eyes met Imani's briefly. "We have new perspectives to consider." She'd spent hours helping him craft this pivot. Her knowledge of struggling community businesses, healthcare gaps, and neighborhood needs had revealed opportunities his criminal-focused lieutenants had missed. Where Anthony had seen only protection rackets, she showed Dominic investment potential. After the meeting, they toured the neighborhoods under Salvatore control. Imani saw beyond the surface now, noticed how Dominic's men kept streets safe, how his businesses employed local youth, how his influence maintained infrastructure when city services failed. "The bodega on Sherman Street," she said as they drove. "The owner's drowning in predatory loans. You could refinance him, partner on expansion." Dominic nodded. "Add it to the list. Your insight into these communities. It's invaluable." They worked through lunch in his study, mapping business opportunities. Their hands brushed as they reached for the same document, electricity sparking between them. But this was different from their night of passion. This was partnership. "You see things I miss," he admitted. "Fresh angles I'd never consider. Because you're too close to the old ways." She held his gaze. "These neighborhoods don't just need protection. They need investment, opportunity." The afternoon brought more meetings. Imani now openly at his side. She watched him mediate disputes, arrange medical care for a captain's sick mother, authorize college funds for loyal employees' children. This was the man few saw, the one building something beyond mere criminal empire. Marco burst in as sunset approached, face grave. "We've got a problem." The intercepted federal communications revealed everything, months of investigation, dozens of witnesses. A RICO case built on testimony from someone inside Dominic's circle. Then came the photo that shattered Imani's world. Tasha, her nursing school friend, confidant, the one who'd asked so many careful questions, in an FBI jacket. "Agent Natasha Rivera," Marco reported. "Organized crime division." Imani's legs gave out. Dominic caught her, easing her into a chair. Her mind spun with memories, coffee dates where she'd innocently mentioned work details, phone calls probing for information, each revelation now tainted. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." "I believe you." Dominic's voice was gentle, but his eyes were hard. "Marco, evacuation protocol. Now." They barely had time to move Jamal and Zara to the secure wing before federal vehicles swarmed the compound. Agents poured in with warrants, evidence folders thick with surveillance photos, financial records, witness statements. And there was Tasha, badge displayed, looking at Imani with a mixture of guilt and determination. "I can protect you, tonight," she said. "You and your siblings. Witness protection, new identities, a fresh start." She gestured at the evidence. "His whole operation is exposed. This is your chance at a legitimate life." Imani turned to Dominic, tears streaming. He stood unnaturally still, face unreadable. "The things I've seen here," she started. "Were real," he finished. "The protection, the opportunities, the community support, all real. But so is this." He gestured at the federal agents. "So is what I am. I have to think of Jamal and Zara." "I know." His voice cracked slightly. "This was always where we were headed, Imani. Someone like me doesn't get a happy ending." She stepped toward him, but Tasha moved between them. "We need to go. Now." Moments later, she stood with her siblings by a federal SUV, watching agents swarm the compound. Dominic remained in the doorway, power radiating even in surrender, watching her slip away into witness protection and legitimacy. This time, he didn't stop what he could have prevented with a single word. He remained motionless as the vehicles pulled away, a statue of contained violence and hidden pain. Imani watched through the rear window until his figure disappeared, the man who'd shown her both the darkness of his world and the unexpected light within it, now fading into memory as federal agents led her toward a different future. Snow drifted past the farmhouse windows, Vermont's landscape a stark contrast to Boston's urban chaos. Imani sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through news articles on a burner phone. Every headline about the Salvatore case made her heart clench. "You need to stop torturing yourself," Tasha said, setting down coffee mugs. 3 weeks in witness protection had transformed their friendship into something complex, part handler, part reluctant confidant. "They're saying life sentences, Tasha, multiple life sentences. Because he's refusing to cooperate." Tasha's expression softened. "He could make a deal, but he's protecting his people. That's his choice." Imani pushed away the phone, remembering Dominic's face as she'd left. He'd looked almost peaceful, like he'd expected this ending all along. "How are the kids adjusting?" Tasha changed subjects. "Zara barely speaks. Jamal's angry, at me, at you, at everything." Imani wrapped her hands around the warm mug. They had friends, schools, a life. Now we're ghosts. The farmhouse was comfortable enough. 3 bedrooms, a modern kitchen, security systems disguised as rural charm. But it felt hollow, temporary, a way station between lives. Later that morning, during her mandatory medical check, the doctor's words hit like a physical blow. "Congratulations, Ms. Sanders." Their new surname still felt foreign. "You're pregnant." Imani stared at the ultrasound image, emotions warring inside her, a piece of Dominic growing beneath her heart. Joy surged, followed immediately by crushing uncertainty. Her child would be born into witness protection, never knowing their father beyond newspaper headlines about a criminal empire's fall. Back at the farmhouse, she found Tasha reviewing security protocols with the rotating guard detail. Her friend's FBI badge caught the winter light, still a jarring sight. "Marco's restructuring the legitimate businesses," Tasha reported, proving she still monitored Imani's interests. The community programs, employment initiatives, everything you helped design, they're separating it from the criminal operations. Dominic's orders. Even behind bars, he was implementing their plans, building something better, just as they'd discussed over late-night strategy sessions. "The preliminary hearings next week," Tasha continued. "He's hired top defense attorneys, but isn't fighting the main charges, just negotiating to protect his people and the legitimate operations." Imani pressed a hand to her still flat stomach, keeping her secret. "And Anthony?" "Still cooperating with the Rossis, but..." Tasha hesitated. "We're having trouble keeping witnesses. 3 disappeared last week. 2 more went silent yesterday." "What do you mean, disappeared?" "Just gone. No bodies, no traces. Their protective details found empty houses." Something cold settled in Imani's chest. She'd seen Anthony's methods up close. "Have you changed our security protocols?" "We've increased patrols. This is our most secure location." But over the next few days, Imani noticed things. The guard rotations were slightly off schedule. Unknown vehicles lingered on distant roads. Small details that triggered warnings from her time in Dominic's world. "You're being paranoid," Tasha insisted when Imani raised concerns. "This location is completely secure." Imani checked on her siblings more frequently. Jamal had taken to sleeping with a baseball bat beside his bed. Even Zara sensed the tension, staying close to her sister instead of exploring the sprawling property. She tried calling Tasha's supervisor, but her concerns were dismissed. They viewed her as traumatized, seeing threats in shadows. But Dominic had taught her to trust her instincts. That night, she packed go bags for each of them: cash, documents, essentials. A habit learned from watching Marco's security preparations. She tucked them under their beds, not telling her siblings, but making sure they knew where to find them. Sleep proved elusive. Every creak of the old farmhouse sent her pulse racing. Around 2 a.m., she finally drifted off, only to jerk awake an hour later. Something was wrong. The house felt different. The ambient hum of security systems was silent. When she checked her burner phone, there was no signal. Glass shattered downstairs. Imani moved on instinct, bare feet silent on wooden floors. She reached Jamal first, clamping a hand over his mouth until he recognized her. Together they got Zara, already awake and trembling. Heavy footsteps moved through the lower floor. Male voices murmured in tactical patterns she recognized from Dominic's security teams. But these weren't friendlies. "The bags," she breathed to her siblings. "Under your beds, now." They retrieved the packs as more glass broke somewhere below. A muffled thump suggested they'd found one of the security guards. Jamal gripped his baseball bat. Zara pressed against Imani's side. The footsteps began ascending the stairs, each creak a countdown to confrontation. Imani positioned her siblings behind her, mind racing through options. The master bedroom had a connecting door to the attic. If they could reach it before the armed men found them. A floorboard creaked outside their door. Imani herded her siblings toward the attic access, nerves screaming with tension. The door burst open as they reached the hidden panel. Gunshots hit the wall, but Leo filled the doorway, weapon trained down the hall. "Move! Now!" he barked, covering their escape. Through the attic and down to the garage, they piled into a waiting armored SUV. Leo peeled out as gunfire erupted behind them. "How did you—" Imani started. "Dominic never stopped watching," Leo said. "Anthony bought off half the protection detail. Been eliminating witnesses, making deals with the Rossis." They drove for hours to a remote cabin with solar panels and reinforced gates. "He's inside," Leo told Imani. "Been monitoring everything while maintaining his house arrest appearance." When Dominic opened the door, Imani crashed into his embrace. I couldn't leave you unprotected, he murmured. Gunfire suddenly shattered the moment. Dominic shoved Imani down as bullets splintered the doorframe. Leo shepherded her siblings toward the panic room. They must have followed us, Dominic growled, pulling his gun. I'm not leaving you, Imani protested. Dominic spotted movement and pushed Imani clear as gunfire ripped through the wall. He staggered, chest blooming red. No! Imani screamed, dragging him behind cover. She pressed against the wound. The bullet had missed his heart but punctured a lung. Using the cabin's medical kit, Imani worked frantically while gunfire outside gradually died away. Hours passed before Dominic stabilized. Imani sat beside his bed, clasping his hand. Quite a reversal, he said hoarsely. Now who's the invalid? Now I really am your nurse, she replied, and you don't get to leave me either. Never planned to. There's something else, she said quietly, placing his hand against her stomach. We're going to need a more permanent safe house. Understanding dawned in his eyes. I'll build us a fortress, he promised. But first we end this. Anthony, the Rossis, all of it. Our child deserves better. Imani rested against him, careful of his wounds. Outside, Leo coordinated security while her siblings slept safely. An unlikely family, forged in violence but bound by something stronger.